For more than a decade, Adobe Flash powered the internet, until the very technology that built the web became its biggest liability. Millions of people unknowingly depended on Flash every single day because almost every entertaining website relied upon its remarkable interactive capabilities.
Flash transformed ordinary web pages into living experiences, making games, video, and animations available to anyone with a simple internet connection.
Entire generations grew up clicking colorful Flash games after school, never realizing one company quietly powered much of their online childhood. Businesses quickly embraced Flash because it allowed designers to create websites unlike anything the internet had ever seen before.
For years, Flash represented creativity, giving developers complete freedom to build experiences impossible with ordinary web technologies alone.
By the late 2000s, Flash had quietly become one of the most important technologies supporting entertainment across the rapidly expanding internet. Yet behind Flash's extraordinary success, serious technical weaknesses were already growing strong enough to threaten its remarkable future. Flash began its journey as Future Splash Animator, created by a small software company searching for faster ways to deliver web animation. Soon, Adobe recognized the technology's enormous potential, purchasing the software and unknowingly changing the future of the internet forever. Adobe quickly renamed Future Splash to Flash, believing lightweight web animation would soon become essential to the internet's explosive growth. Developers immediately embraced Flash because it allowed impressive animations to download surprisingly fast, even through painfully slow internet connections. Unlike traditional graphics, Flash relied on vector technology, producing smooth animations while keeping file sizes remarkably small for the time. Businesses suddenly discovered websites could become interactive experiences instead of simple pages filled with static text and ordinary images.
Within only a few years, Flash spread rapidly across the web, becoming one of the internet's most recognizable technologies. Installing Flash Player became almost unavoidable, because countless popular websites simply refused to function without the required plugin.
From education to advertising, Flash quietly transformed almost every corner of the growing internet into something far more engaging.
Industry experts increasingly viewed Flash as the future of rich web content, because no competing technology matched its flexibility.
Major websites proudly showcased Flash experiences because they attracted visitors and made brands appear modern, creative, and technologically advanced. By the early 2000s, Flash was no longer just software. It had become one of the internet's invisible foundations.
As Flash matured under Macromedia, developers continuously expanded its capabilities, transforming it into a complete platform for interactive web experiences.
Creative agencies embraced Flash because clients demanded websites that looked exciting instead of ordinary collections of static pages. Visitors expected websites to move, react, and entertain them, making Flash almost impossible for businesses to ignore. Flash quietly reached classrooms, offices, and family homes, becoming part of everyday internet life for hundreds of millions of people. Browser gaming exploded because Flash allowed developers to create addictive experiences that required nothing more than a web browser. Independent creators suddenly reached global audiences without selling physical software, opening entirely new opportunities for small game developers. Animators discovered they could publish creative stories directly online, bypassing traditional television networks and expensive production companies. Streaming video also became dramatically easier because Flash offered a reliable solution for delivering media across different operating systems. When YouTube launched, nearly every video viewers watched depended entirely upon Flash Player working correctly inside their browser. By the middle of the 2000s, Flash had become one of the internet's most powerful technologies, seemingly impossible to replace.
Facet. In 2005, Adobe acquired Macromedia, gaining control of Flash and positioning itself to dominate the future.
The acquisition united creative software and web innovation under one company, dramatically increasing Flash's influence across the rapidly expanding internet. Adobe continued improving Flash, giving artists, developers, and businesses powerful tools for creating increasingly sophisticated online experiences. Around the world, creative professionals adopted Flash as the industry's preferred platform for animation, multimedia, and interactive web design.
Major brands invested heavily in Flash because interactive advertising attracted customers in ways traditional websites simply could not.
Flash became synonymous with modern web design, convincing businesses that motion and interactivity represented the internet's inevitable future. Flash gaming exploded into a worldwide phenomenon, creating entirely new entertainment businesses and launching countless independent game development careers. As YouTube expanded at astonishing speed, Flash quietly delivered billions of online videos to audiences across nearly every connected computer. Few internet users realized how deeply Flash had embedded itself into everyday browsing, entertainment, education, and digital communication. By 2007, Flash stood at the absolute peak of its influence, appearing unstoppable as the internet entered an exciting new era. By 2007, Flash Player had become one of the most installed software plugins, making rich web experiences available almost everywhere.
Schools embraced Flash because it transformed ordinary lessons into engaging interactive experiences that students genuinely enjoyed using every day.
Advertising agencies loved Flash because animated campaigns consistently attracted more attention than traditional static online advertisements. Entire gaming communities emerged around browser titles, proving entertainment no longer required expensive consoles or downloadable software. YouTube's explosive popularity depended heavily upon Flash because it provided a simple solution for streaming video across different computers. Whether visiting gaming sites or watching online videos, millions unknowingly relied on Flash almost every time they opened a browser. Behind its success, Adobe engineers continuously improved Flash, believing it would remain the internet's multimedia standard for many years. Technology publications frequently celebrated Flash as one of the internet's greatest innovations, reinforcing confidence throughout the software industry. But while Flash celebrated unprecedented success, another revolution was quietly approaching that would expose its greatest weaknesses. Unlike traditional computers, smartphones demanded software built specifically for touch, efficiency, and long-lasting battery performance. Apple engineers quickly concluded that Flash consumed excessive processing power while reducing performance, stability, and battery life on mobile devices. The desktop internet and the mobile internet were becoming fundamentally different, forcing developers to rethink how websites should actually function. Many users noticed certain websites simply failed to work correctly on the iPhone, creating frustration and confusion across the growing mobile audience.
Behind closed doors, Apple had already decided that Flash would never become part of the iPhone experience.
Adobe believed Flash could still succeed on smartphones and invested heavily in adapting the technology for mobile hardware. Although some competing devices later supported Flash, the experience often felt slower, less reliable, and far more demanding on hardware. Performance issues became increasingly difficult to ignore as smartphones prioritized speed, efficiency, and dependable everyday usability over flashy visual effects. Then Apple made a public decision that would permanently alter Flash's future and reshape the internet for generations to come.
Instead of making a brief announcement, Jobs published an unusually detailed open letter criticizing Flash across multiple technical and strategic issues.
Apple believed the future belonged to lightweight web standards specifically designed for touch devices rather than aging desktop technologies. Apple strongly promoted HTML5 because it delivered multimedia without requiring additional plugins, improving security, speed, and battery efficiency. Adobe strongly disagreed, insisting Flash remained an open technology capable of delivering powerful experiences across many different devices. The company accelerated development, hoping performance improvements could convince mobile manufacturers that Flash still deserved an important future. Although Android briefly supported Flash, developers increasingly realized the web itself was beginning to move in an entirely different direction. For the first time, Flash faced a competitor capable of replacing its greatest strengths, instead of merely challenging its popularity.
As HTML5 matured, browser makers increasingly supported open web standards that reduced dependence on proprietary browser plugins like Flash.
Developers discovered they could build interactive websites using open technologies without asking users to install additional software.
And Google quietly began experimenting with HTML5 video, preparing YouTube for a future that depended far less on Flash Player.
Transition happened gradually, allowing millions of users to continue watching videos while the platform slowly abandoned Flash behind the scenes. One by one, major internet companies embraced HTML5 because it offered greater compatibility, improved performance, and stronger long-term flexibility. Security researchers repeatedly discovered critical vulnerabilities, damaging Flash's reputation as cyber attacks targeting the plugin became increasingly common. Frequent security patches frustrated businesses and home users alike, making Flash appear unreliable compared with rapidly improving web standards. Browser developers increasingly optimized their software around open standards, reducing the importance of third-party plugins across the modern web. Businesses realized customers preferred faster, safer websites that worked immediately across computers, smartphones, and tablets without additional downloads. By the early 2010s, Flash was no longer leading the web, because the internet itself had already chosen a different future.
By 2011, Adobe accepted a difficult reality and officially ended development of Flash Player for mobile devices.
The decision acknowledged that smartphones had fundamentally changed internet browsing, making Flash's original design increasingly impractical for modern computing. After years of investment, Adobe redirected its engineering resources toward desktop support and emerging open web technologies instead. Meanwhile, browser companies began treating plugins as security risks rather than essential components of the modern internet. Instead of loading automatically, Flash increasingly required user permission, signaling that browser vendors no longer trusted the aging technology. One browser after another introduced restrictions, making Flash less convenient while encouraging websites to adopt safer alternatives. Security concerns continued growing as attackers repeatedly exploited Flash vulnerabilities to spread malware across millions of computers worldwide. Each newly discovered vulnerability further damaged public confidence, making organizations increasingly reluctant to rely upon Flash in critical environments. Industry leaders openly questioned Flash's future, arguing the web could finally move forward using faster, safer, and more efficient technologies. The decline was no longer temporary, because the entire technology industry had already committed itself to a future beyond Flash.
By the middle of the 2010s, YouTube had largely completed its transition to HTML5, removing Flash from the center of online video.
Millions of viewers barely noticed the change, because videos simply played faster, smoother, and more reliably than before. One after another, the internet's biggest platforms quietly abandoned Flash, leaving fewer reasons for users to keep the plugin installed. Businesses also began removing Flash from company computers, viewing outdated plugins as unnecessary security risks rather than valuable software. Eventually, most modern browsers disabled Flash automatically, making the once essential technology increasingly invisible to everyday internet users. In 2017, Adobe officially announced Flash would reach the end of its life, giving developers several years to prepare. Developers around the world rushed to rebuild years of work before support disappeared forever, beginning one of the web's largest migrations. The countdown had begun, and everyone knew the internet was preparing to say goodbye to one of its most influential technologies.
On December 31, 2020, Adobe officially ended support for Flash, closing an extraordinary chapter in internet history.
Days later, Flash content stopped running by default, marking the true end of a technology that had once powered the web. Although Flash officially disappeared, thousands of animations, games, and educational projects still remain too important to lose forever. Open-source developers created Ruffle, allowing many classic Flash experiences to survive without depending upon the original Adobe Flash Player. Organizations like the Internet Archive began preserving thousands of Flash creations before they disappeared from the internet forever.
These preservation efforts protected an important part of internet history, ensuring future generations could still experience Flash-powered creativity.
Flash gradually transformed from everyday software into a historical artifact, representing one of the internet's most creative and influential eras.
Today, computer science students examine Flash not as outdated software, but as a lesson in technological evolution and adaptation. Many ideas pioneered by Flash continue living through HTML5, proving innovation often survives even after the original technology disappears. The modern web inherited Flash's ambition while replacing its architecture with faster, safer, and more open technologies.
What once represented the future of the internet now reminds us how quickly technology can become history.
Flash may have disappeared, but its influence remains deeply woven into the foundations of today's internet. Flash inspired countless game developers, proving remarkable entertainment could reach millions directly through an ordinary web browser. Many beloved Flash games eventually returned using modern technologies, preserving unforgettable experiences without depending on outdated software.
Responsive web design replaced fixed desktop experiences, allowing websites to adapt naturally across every screen and every device.
Modern developers no longer build separate internet experiences because today's web automatically scales across different devices and operating systems. The technologies replacing Flash gradually became faster, more secure, and significantly easier for developers to maintain over time. Technology evolves relentlessly, rewarding companies that adapt quickly while leaving behind those that depend upon yesterday's greatest innovations.
Flash changed owners, changed names, and changed the internet. Yet no technology remains dominant forever, regardless of past achievements.
What once represented cutting-edge innovation now serves as a reminder that every breakthrough eventually faces a stronger successor. The internet never stopped evolving, and technologies unwilling or unable to evolve with it slowly faded into history. Flash did not disappear because it lacked innovation. It disappeared because the world around it changed much faster. Adobe Flash reminds us that market leadership alone never guarantees survival when technology changes faster than expectations.
Every successful technology follows a predictable journey from breakthrough innovation to widespread adoption before eventually facing inevitable replacement.
History repeatedly rewards companies willing to reinvent themselves before competitors force difficult changes upon their business. Flash was designed for the desktop era, but the future unexpectedly arrived inside millions of pockets around the world. Consumer expectations changed almost overnight, leaving technologies optimized for yesterday's internet struggling to remain relevant.
Today's software industry embraces openness, efficiency, and compatibility because the lessons learned from Flash remain impossible to ignore.
Despite its decline, Flash helped shape an entire generation's understanding of creativity, entertainment, and interactive experiences online.
Preserving Flash is not about nostalgia alone. It protects an important chapter in the history of the modern internet.
Every website we visit today quietly carries ideas first explored during Flash's remarkable years of innovation and experimentation. Although Flash disappeared, its influence continues shaping the web in ways most people never even notice. The story of Flash proves that innovation alone cannot guarantee survival when an entire industry chooses a different direction. What once represented the future of digital creativity now serves as a reminder that every breakthrough eventually becomes history. The companies that survive are rarely those with the best products, but those willing to reinvent themselves before the market demands it. The Flash failed because computing itself changed, transforming from desktop-first experiences into a mobile world demanding speed, efficiency, and flexibility. The web became faster, safer, and more open, leaving proprietary technologies with increasingly little room to survive. Every internet user benefited from the changes that followed. Even if most never realized, Flash quietly helped inspire them. Millions still remember Flash with affection because it shaped childhood memories, creative careers, and the earliest years of online entertainment. Technology never truly disappears because its greatest ideas continue evolving inside the innovations that replace it. From a small animation tool to one of the internet's greatest platforms, Flash permanently earned its place in computing history. Its software may be gone, but its influence continues living quietly inside nearly every modern web experience we use today.
The internet moved forward, yet Flash remains one of the few technologies that truly transformed how billions of people experience the web.
Its disappearance reminds us that success belongs not to the strongest technology, but to the one that adapts fastest when change arrives. Every generation of technology creates the foundation for the next, even when the original innovation eventually fades into history. Flash changed the internet forever, proving that revolutionary ideas can outlive the products that first introduced them to the world. Although Adobe Flash reached its end, its remarkable story continues reminding innovators that standing still is never an option. Adobe Flash changed the internet forever, but history remembers those who continue evolving long after success first arrives. If you enjoy discovering the untold stories behind technology's greatest successes and failures, you're in exactly the right place. Subscribe and join us as we uncover the forgotten decisions that changed the technology industry forever, one story at a time.
Next, we'll uncover how the world's most dominant browser slowly lost everything, despite having Microsoft's full support behind it.
Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'll see you in our next documentary, where we uncover the rise and fall of the browser Microsoft couldn't save.